Hello and welcome to a look at the Braver class for Phantasy Star Online 2. Braver was added in part of the Episode 2 update a few months ago. It's a new hybrid class that switches between melee combat and range combat. For melee combat it uses the Katana, and for range combat it uses the Bullet Bow. It's also got access to the gun slash like every other class. When Braver was added it was a decent class, but it was a little bit behind some of the others in terms of performance. But with a recent update and some new Fortnite, it's been given new life and it's now one of the best classes in the game. What I'll be doing in this video is just doing a quick run through a mission and showing off the Braver class and just showing the perks of the class and the special abilities it has access to. Firstly, you've got access to the Katana. Katana is a very fast melee weapon with limited range, although it can hit multiple targets. Generally it wasn't a particularly damaging weapon, but in a recent update we've been given access to, there's a couple of new Fortnites for it that have given it a real boost in power, and it's now actually one of the most powerful weapons in the game. For Katana you've also got access to a few unique skills. Like most melee weapons you're able to guard, but with Katana if you build up your Gi gauge by attacking, which is the gauge at the bottom of the screen, when you've got that to maximum gauge, if you block with perfect timing, not only will you negate the attack, but you'll also counter-attack the enemy at the same time, whereas other weapons would just negate the attack. You also have access to this skill here, which is the last one on the palette at the bottom, which is called Katana Combat. This, when you activate it, it's an active skill that lasts for around 20 seconds. During that time, you gain increased attack speed, and you will, when you get near an enemy target, you'll actually dash very quickly towards it, so it allows you to dash around enemies very quickly. Also, there's another skill that links to it called Katana Combat Finish, which is that if you activate Katana Combat again while you're already in Katana Combat, you'll end Katana Combat and you'll let off an AoE attack all round you that hits all enemies round you. It has quite a large range, and the damage of it is based on how much damage you did while you were in Katana Combat. So quite a common tactic is to activate Katana Combat, do some really powerful attacks, and then do Katana Combat Finish to basically add insult to injury and do even more damage. There's also another ability you can pair with it called Katana Combat Escape, which actually makes you invulnerable for some of Katana Combat, and when you've maxed the level of that ability, it actually makes you invincible for the entirety of Katana Combat, making Braver unbelievably powerful, particularly in boss fights. If you think that you can now have 20 seconds of invulnerability, topped off with a huge attack at the end of it. So what I'll do is I'll run through this mission. This mission is Subdue Goronzoran, which is a boss in the Dragon Altar area on the planet Amduskia. He's a fairly easy boss, but I just wanted to do a quick run through a mission just to show you how the class works. I'll primarily be using the Katana, but I will switch to bow a little bit to show you that as well. So I'll use Fury stance because I do have Hunter as my subclass. This other stance I'm using is Average stance, which just gives me a flat attack power boost. Normally with the stances you have some kind of drawback, so with Fury stance you increase your attack at the expense of defense. With Brave stance for fighter you increase your attack from the front, but you reduce attack from behind. With Average stance you don't get as much of a boost, but you always have a boost. So this is the reason that the Katana is now a rather broken weapon. That Fortnite basically is the bottom line of why Katana is unbelievably powerful now. It's called Shunka Shunran, and if you want to get it, it's a drop from the rare end boss of the Mining Defense Emergency Mission. But in essence what it is, it hits around 5 times, does, at my level, does around 7,000 to 10,000 every hit. Can hit multiple targets and only costs the same kind of PP as a normal attack would. Right, so what I'll do is I'll use Katana Combat here because these are quite large enemies. I mean, you can see how ridiculous this Fortnite is. I mean, these are large enemies, they should be taking a real beating. And instead I'm just trouncing them. So here's combat finish. I mean, you can see there it did nearly 12,000 damage. And that's to an armoured part of an enemy as well. If you hit that on a weak point of an enemy, it is possible to hit over 100,000 sometimes. Does of course have other Fortnite. That one I used then is Kanran Kikyu. Apologies if I'm pronouncing any of these wrong. All of the Katana Fortnite names are all in Japanese. It's not as if they have an English variant. So for example for Bow, one of the Fortnites is called Last Nemesis. But all of the Katana ones are called things like Kanran Kikyu or Shunka Shunran. For some reason that switch took ages to unlock. Not sure why. All that and it was a dead end as well. Apologies if I'm sounding a bit hoarse, I've got a bit of cold at the moment. Or man flu, whichever you want to call it. So I think what I'll do next is, on the next spawn where bow is viable, I'll switch to bullet bow so you can see how that works. To be honest, it's largely the same as other range weapons, there isn't really anything new to it. The only exception I can think of is that you're actually with bow able to charge your normal attacks like that. That Fortnite I used then where I levitated, that's Last Nemesis. I will say that now that Braver has these newfound Fortnites, when you go in a public game, there's a ridiculous amount of people playing Braver now. I was playing it a long time before it became overpowered, but it does beg the question really, why bother playing anything else at the moment? Braver is that strong compared to other classes that it's almost pointless playing anything else sometimes. Which is a shame really, because I'm all for being able to play whatever I want. I mean, the other thing about Katana that makes it even worse is the fact that it also has a ranged attack. It's not exactly a weak range attack either, that's called Hatorindo. I mean, some people have said that they think that Katana actually uses range better than Bow does. I'm not sure if I agree with that necessarily, but against some enemies, Hatorindo is ridiculously overpowered. Although compared to Shunka Shunran, it even looks weak sometimes. You can probably tell from this that I do like Braver. It's just, it does feel a bit cheap sometimes when you're waltzing up to a boss and killing it in a couple of hits. It's a shame really. I mean, Sega have never been great with balancing. Particularly with PSO2, it seemed that at every point in PSO2's existence, there's always been one class that's been more powerful than the others. Oh, I've actually had a boss spawn. I'll try and beat it, I can't promise anything, but... This is Dragon X, he's actually the final boss of the Sanctum area, so you would fight him in the free mission. he does hit very hard, and unfortunately I've got him in a very small space here as well. What I might do is try and lure him over slightly. It's really not a good place for him, this. And you can see how hard he's hitting. When he changes colour from blue to orange, he becomes more aggressive. There we go, we've managed to beat him. I could have probably beaten him faster if I didn't want to play too risky, really. One of the other things I don't like about Sanctum, sometimes the map is really difficult to guess where the exit's going to be. You can tell quite easily on some maps. So Bow has, you've got a homing shot there called Master Shoot. You've also got one where you actually fire yourself through the bow, which looks pretty hilarious. That's called Kamikaze Arrow. That's really powerful as well. And then you've got Last Nemesis, which I showed earlier. It would be a bit dangerous to use it at the minute. But you can get an idea that Bow is really strong as well. But it is, I would say at the moment at least, it is certainly playing second fiddle to Katana. I hate these doors where they try and blow you away. You can't get near them. Right, so this should be our boss fight against Goronzoran. The general idea of this boss fight is he's protected by a barrier that nullifies all damage, and he has 4 crystals that float around him, so you need to destroy the 4 crystals first, which lowers his barrier and makes him vulnerable for a little bit. The flip side to that is that he barely has any health at all, so when you do get to hit him you can kill him pretty quickly. Right, so we'll see how this goes. Another gimmick that he has is he can also summon the Caves boss Voldragon. You can't actually hurt it when it appears, but it'll appear and try and attack you for a little bit. So we'll use Katana combat. So we've broken his barrier, and now we can go to town on him. And like I say, he barely has any health at all. I mean, we've killed him already. He used to be a more difficult boss, but Sega reduced the amount of health that his crystals had and the amount of defense they had. And we actually got a rare from him there. I don't think it's anything special. I think it's just a 9-star launcher. We only got A rank instead of S because I skipped quite a few enemies in the last block. Right, so that should be a quick rundown of Braver. Like I say, it is quite an overpowered class at the moment. I think in time it may be patched, but for the time being at least, it is definitely one of the stronger classes in the game. But it is very fun to play as well, and it's a nice mix between range combat and melee combat, which is you don't get in any other class really. So hopefully you've enjoyed that look at the Braver, and if you are interested in checking out PSO2, you can find out quite easily how to access the Japanese servers. At the moment there's still no Western release date for anywhere else in the world really. Sega just keeps saying that the game's coming at some point, but they've given us no real release date, so at this point really I would say it's probably safe to assume that it's vaporware. It's sad really because PSO2 is a good game. It does have its flaws, but it is worth playing. It's just a shame really that anyone who was a Western fan of PSO has to play the Japanese version of this to get the experience. Anyway, before I go off on a big ramble about Sega and their business practices, I'll end the video here. If you've got any questions or anything, just leave them in the comments below. Thanks now.